Good morning, everyone. Emily Wilmoth here, environmental educator with New Jersey Audubon. We are back with you this week live from the Cape May Hawkwatch. Few announcements before we get started. We're super excited. Today is the first day of the Cape May Fall Festival, and we're going virtual this year. So no matter where you are, you have the opportunity to participate in really exciting programs, virtual field trips, silent auction, etc. And you can register for the festival still at njaudubon.org. As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Swarovski Optics and Actions at EBMF, for all of their support. Now for updates on the Hawkwatch numbers, we are over 11,000 raptors counted just this season, so in just a little bit over a month. That is incredible. The past 2 days up here have been outstanding. 2 days ago we had about 1,500 raptors counted, and yesterday about 1,300. So really great flights the past couple of days, and we're expecting that to continue today and into tomorrow. We've got northwest winds, which Eric mentioned last week are the ideal wind conditions for migration here in Cape May. So we're super excited. The fall is really getting hot here down in Cape May. So today, the topic is sort of the behind the scenes of the Hawkwatch, getting into the nitty-gritty of how things are actually done. What sort of methods and protocols are used at the Hawkwatch. And it's important to really be consistent with methods and protocols year after year so that we can compare the data and try to draw some conclusions. We want things to be as consistent as possible. We do have different people coming in, sometimes every year, sometimes every 2 or 3 years we switch hawk counters. So if we can pass down, sort of these guidelines for everybody to follow, then our data can be comparable. So to help us with this topic, I'm going to actually interview a former hawk counter, Mr. Eric Brunke. So Eric, come on over. I have a few questions for you, sir. We'll keep our 6-foot distance here.
Yes.
So Eric, tell me, how do you even go about finding raptors in the sky to count?
There is a little bit of a technique for looking for birds of prey in the sky. If you stare at one part of the sky a little too long, you create peripheral vision. So a lot of times it's casually looking around, left, right, up, down. Another technique, and you can all do this both at home, but also if you come up here to the Hawkwatch, is you take your binoculars and imagine that you're painting a wall with a roller. Okay, so what you do is you go up, over, down, over, and that can be a good technique for picking out the birds of prey as they move through.
Fantastic. Yesterday we just had these clear blue skies, and it was a challenge to spot these little specks, way up there in the sky. So that's a great technique. Thank you. Now, when you actually find a hawk or a raptor, what sort of strategies do you use to help you identify it?
Yes, so there's different ways to look at birds of prey in flight. One of the biggest things to keep in mind is ignoring what you think is size altogether. When you look at size, you start to create this pre-made idea of what you might want the bird to be. So when you see a raptor, look at how it behaves. Is it fast flapping and fluttery? Or is it slow and lethargic? You can also look at the structure of the bird. It's got a big head, a small head, long wings, short wings. Look at how the tail comes off of the body. Like we talked about before in previous Friday experiences through Facebook Live, some raptors hold the wings up, some are straight out, and some, like the osprey from earlier on, are even hunched. So a lot of looking at the bird and its proportions, as well as behavior, is really important for learning these birds of prey.
Excellent. And we're going to have a whole session in a couple of weeks on raptor identification. So we'll dive even deeper into those ideas that you shared. So great, you find the raptor, you identify the raptor. How do you know you're not just counting the same sharp-shinned hawk over and over again? They all kind of look similar, right?
Yeah, they probably that is likely one of the most frequently asked questions here at the Cape May Hawkwatch. The duties and main task of a hawk counter is to count the birds as they move through and basically figure that their season-long job is like a migratory toll booth. So what happens is the hawk counter will keep their eyes on the skies, tallying, okay, here's this group of birds or this kettle of raptors that are coming through, here's this sharp-shinned hawk, here's the Cooper's hawk, and they click them and document them as they're moving through. Also making note of any groups that might be swirling around, not to double count them. So a lot of these birds of prey that are moving through, typically here in Cape May, are going from east to west, which is the relative most southbound migration for them as they come around the peninsula.
Awesome. So a lot to keep track of at one time, you know, especially on days when we're seeing 1,000+ birds. That's incredible. Can you share a little bit about how you actually enter the data and keep track of the numbers?
Yes, so from previous years, and like many Hawkwatches historically, there has always been this component of having a notebook, a pad of paper of some sort, and jotting everything down by hand. Many Hawkwatches also have developed their own spreadsheets of boxes, how they enter the data, and we've gone high tech over recent years, and it's worked to our advantage tremendously. We use a program called Trectellin, which is a digital data entry app for our tablet, and how it works is here in Cape May we enter the birds as they are seen, and so we don't have to worry about papers blowing away or you know, wet data being lost at any point. And so every bird of prey that's documented here at the Cape May Hawkwatch is entered in real time, and it can actually be streamed as well through the Trectellin website. So it's a very safe and effective way of documenting all these raptors.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Eric.
Thank you, Emily.
Now you've heard it firsthand from a real-life hawk counter, sort of the behind-the-scenes management and process of conducting a hawk migration count. So I do want to mention, we are not the only Hawkwatch in the country or in the world. These studies are happening all over the place, and it's really cool to sort of compare notes and data and start to paint this picture of global bird migration. Now, in fact, New Jersey Audubon has a second hawk migration count site aside from Cape May, and it's located in Montclair, New Jersey, so up in North Jersey, and it's totally different. You've heard about sort of the peninsula filter effect down here in Cape May. It's a different setup in Montclair. The count is actually situated on top of a ridge. So birds migrating along that ridge line are using updraft to help them on their migration. And it's incredible. You can see the New York City skyline from the count site. In some years, Montclair can be excellent for a type of raptor called a broad-winged hawk, which is actually our featured hawk of the week. In some years, if the conditions are right, they might see kettles, groups of hundreds of broad-winged hawks at one time from the Montclair site. So if you're up in North Jersey, go check it out. We've got an excellent hawk counter Billy up there this year who'd love to have you stop by. Just remember to bring your mask. It's the second oldest continuous running Hawkwatch in the nation, second only to Hawk Mountain, which is another awesome migration count site in Pennsylvania. So, the broad-winged hawk, the featured hawk of the week. At Montclair, they've seen already 700 broad-winged hawks just this season. Here, we had a pretty good day for them yesterday. So broad-winged hawks are beauteos, so they're soaring birds, and they're really kind of stocky looking overall. They've got these short tails, broad wings, and sometimes it looks like the wings are coming to a little bit of a point at the tips. The adult broad-winged hawks, as they're flying over, you'll see they're really kind of light colored underneath, and then they've got this dark outline along the edge of the wings here. And another thing to look for is this heavily banded tail. And these guys are long distance migrants. So they're gonna spend the winters down in Mexico, Central America, even South America. The average flight length for a broad-winged hawk is 4,350 miles during their southern migration. And then, they repeat that when they come back north. So over 8,000 miles a year broad-winged hawks travel. Incredible. And as I mentioned, if conditions are right, sometimes you'll see these birds kettling, riding the same thermal, hundreds, potentially even thousands of broad-winged hawks at once. So super, super cool birds that we're excited to feature this week. Yesterday was really hot and sunny, which made ideal conditions for these guys soaring up on their thermals. So it was one of the better broad-winged hawks here in Cape May for the season so far. So today we were talking about data. As a reminder, the Cape May Hawkwatch has been running since 1976, and we've done a great job at being consistent and really solid, creating this awesome data to help us, learn about raptor populations. So a couple of different things we can learn, I'm using the broad-winged hawk as the example here, are first of all, timing of migration. So based on average daily counts throughout different points in the season over the years, we can sort of see when the peak migration time is for a given species. So you'll see for broad-winged hawk here, it's typically late September into early October, and then really drops off in mid-October. So this is really cool to create these sorts of charts, because we might see how migration timing changes over the years, right? Potentially due to climate change and other factors. We might start to see birds migrating earlier or later, but there's no way we would know that unless we're collecting the data that we are. The other really important data trends that we're seeing is how populations as a whole are changing over time. So if we graph, how many bald eagles we've seen every year since 1976, we can start to see a trend of how bald eagles are doing, at least in this region. And bald eagles are a great example because their numbers have increased over the years, which is so exciting to have a conservation success story after the banning of DDT, especially. Their numbers have just continued to increase, so we love that. Unfortunately, we've seen in other species, the American kestrel, for example, which we've seen hundreds of this week, their numbers are declining, largely due to habitat loss and other issues. So by collecting this awesome data, we can really sort of, keep an eye on what's happening with birds and use this information to help inform conservation decisions. So I want to thank you all for tuning in today. That was a science and math heavy lesson today, but really important stuff, the nitty gritty of the Hawkwatch. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Swarovski, Actions at EBMF, and a reminder to everybody to sign up for the virtual festival if you haven't yet. Myself and Eric will be live reporting from birding hotspots all around Cape May this weekend. Before I sign off, are there any questions that we can answer live here?
No questions. Lots of thumbs up.
All right, thank you. And if you have questions, feel free to post them and we can answer them afterwards. And again, thank you for tuning in. Bye.